2, 3, let go.
All right, now we're everywhere. Everywhere. Live on 2 platforms. We're going to be joined by the venerable, the legendary to me, Bobby Mcmahon. You may remember him from Fox Sports, back in the day when soccer, broadcasting journalism was in its infancy. And it's just a real pleasure to see people like this. We had Nick Eber on. To me, that was like, whoa, the guy who started the whole podcasting thing in the United States. What's up, Alice? How you doing? How's your Inter Milan doing?
They're doing much better. They're riding from that momentum from that 3-0 Coppa Italia win against Juventus. And they won once again to your likeness on Sunday. So, speaking of the Milanese teams, Sassuolo beat AC Milan once again.
See how he does that? Okay, so that's why I'm connected with Bobby right now.
So I see Berlusconi has. He's gonna make a proposal and buy a Sassuolo team since it's the second year in a row that they beat an AC Milan. So he might buy the whole team.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, Rodrigo. How you doing?
How you doing, man? Can you turn on your video?
How's that?
Oh, there we go. Oh my God. Wow.
Okay, so just a sec. I'm going to put my headphones on. I think it'll be better in terms of reception.
Go ahead. Do your thing, man. Do your thing. Wow. To me, it's just like an honor. I guess I wait for him to say that. But what happened? So Berlusconi from AC Milan wants to buy the Sassuolo team
because they can't beat him.
Can't beat him, join him, right?
Unless as well buy them out.
Yeah, basically. So I mean, Juve is just strong. Just too damn strong. Fiorentina is okay. Roma. I mean, it's an exciting Serie A this year. A lot more to me than La Liga, because La Liga is kind of already done. So to me, I mean, Barcelona is going to win it, and it's either Atletico or Real for second place. And the big thing is Real not really performing to how they should be performing. But that's a whole other thing we've spoken about before, where Florentino Perez is the one doing all the machinations behind the coach being Zidane. And it's a shame because Zidane now will probably not have the legacy because of what happens with him as a coach. So, hey, Bobby.
Hey, sorry, just got double calls going on at the moment.
No
Wife's on a business call as well, so she's just clearing out.
Okay, no problem.
I'll just get my wires sorted out here. Hopefully.
And
12 points back, but one league that's still up for grabs.
Yeah, definitely up for grabs.
The English Premier League, which we would love to talk to Bobby about.
Yeah, wow. Oh, by the way, shouts to Paolo from Heroes and Hooligans. Thank you for the T-shirts. You saw that. Thank you. Definitely want to send stuff, free stuff. Hey, we'll wear it. Definitely. Bobby.
Okay, I'm ready to go. Can you hear me, guys?
Oh, perfectly, man. First of all, Bobby, I said this before. It's a real honor to have you on, because when we started watching soccer on TV, you guys, when you were at Fox, it was like, wow, a beacon of light in the darkness. And we couldn't believe that this was happening to us as soccer fans. Like, wow, we're really getting that coverage that we so desperately needed. We had Nick Eber on before. We haven't had Steve Cohen on yet. But you guys really were the trailblazers that made this happen. If it wasn't for you guys, there wouldn't be any NBC Sports or beIN Sports. None of this would have happened, Bobby. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's, again, an honor.
My pleasure, and thanks for the kind words. It's I've never been really regarded as a missionary before, but it sounds good.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of that, I remember, I think it was 98 or 99, in the late 90s, where you were broadcasting an Inter-Lazio game.
Yes.
Then Fox. So that's the first taste I got of soccer here in the States, moving from Albania. So,
yeah, it's when I look back on it, it's just we got the station going, our involvement anyway in 2001, and then when we started broadcasting in the States in 2002, it almost was we were pinching ourselves because we started off on a digital channel in Canada with very small distribution, and then Dermot Macquarie, who was with Fox at that time, had the idea of I think he'd had this idea for a while. He just didn't have necessarily the capacity in Los Angeles to do on a regular basis. But his idea was to do a daily. It started off a sports show with an emphasis on soccer, but then turned into a pure soccer show every night, and a report and mixture of highlights and conversation and news, and I think it's fair to say that for a period of about 10 years it worked very, very well. But all good things come to an end, and we can always look back on it with some pride, I think.
No, but it's I'm sure there's plenty of stories you have, just like when ESPN started, it was nuts, it was raucous, it was crazy. Thanks for everybody giving us the little hearts on Periscope. If you have any questions for this legend, this man right here, please definitely you hit us up. Really, Bob, we're not just giving you platitudes. It's really like an honor because you know your stuff, and I remember back in the day you going back and forth with Jeremy St. Louis, all these guys, we look to them as senseis, if you will, because you knew your stuff, but you also came with it with, it was a little bit of a little humor, so it wasn't just this stuck up sports and soccer is just very, very staid. We got a sense that you guys knew what was going on, and it was a great way that you presented it as well.
It's having that kind of personal connection, and I think the thing that probably people would be most surprised at would be the amount of latitude we were really given, and which really helped me because my lack of discipline of hitting the marks, it was very difficult to actually transition when I did go down to Los Angeles and do some work for Fox in Los Angeles around the 2006 World Cup, and then Champions League 2009, 2010, and some pre-World Cup shows we did in 2010. Fox in the States in Los Angeles, when I broadcast from Los Angeles, were very much tighter on hitting your marks and making sure you were right on the commercial break, and it was very, very tight. Mm-hmm. While in Winnipeg, we just prattled on and kind of took the breaks when we got round to it. But I think it allowed us to have actually more flow and more discussion, and perhaps explore topics more thoroughly than if it had been a tighter format.
Definitely. Now, to continue with the Canadian theme, Didier Drogba and Montreal Impact. What's going on with that? What's really happening there?
To be honest, you guys have probably got as much information as I do. He obviously made a massive impact in last year, and I just wonder if that impact he made last year, whether he kind of regretted leaving Europe, and then all the talk of Chelsea and the upside down kind of situation with Chelsea this year has left it in a kind of state of flux. So what happens in the next few weeks, I guess your guess is as good as mine. It's obviously he was a very, very important player. He kind of fired that team last year. But they also got off to a very good start in Vancouver on the weekend as well. So, as usual with soccer, we never quite know what's round the corner.
Yeah, I know. Ellis?
Speaking of MLS, Bobby, how do you see this league progressing? It's been on the uphill for the last decade. We've seen so many expansion teams. What do you think of its potential? Do you think it can expand even further? How will we have? Do you see a continental North American league in the coming, or?
Interesting you say that, because I've always suspected that the ultimate future is some sort of cross-border Mexican United States league. Rather like, if I use an analogy of the Copa America this summer, I did an article for When Saturday Comes, a British magazine, way back in about 2001, just when I started with Fox Sports in Canada, and the article was suggesting that really what needed to happen was we needed to have a Pan-American tournament rather than the Copa America and the Gold Cup being separate tournaments, that there was so many good reasons why Copa America, or the countries in South America, needed access to larger economies like Mexico and the United States in terms of sponsorship for the tournament, while the Gold Cup, the CONCACAF countries, needed better competition rather than just playing each other in the Gold Cup all the time. And so it was a match made in heaven, and the two things would kind of match. And I would use a similar kind of idea for Mexico and the United States. This, you know, you put the two together, and I think you have potential to be an unbelievably good league. Now that's going to take a long time. And whether it goes that way or not, I guess, is a different is a question. But MLS, if it continues a standalone league, it's got deep roots. It's going well. I think the frustration that fans have is it never goes as quickly as we expect. And once again, to draw some sort of parallels, I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, on the Chinese league. And some of the predictions for the Chinese taking over world soccer and how they were going to be a major power, and pretty much dismissing it as claptrap. These things take generations to evolve, and there is absolutely no example in history of a league going, or a domestic tournament or a domestic league going from nothing to being a world power in the matter of 5 to 10 years, and people would have us believe that's going to happen in China, and quite frankly it's not. If it's going to happen, it's going to take 2 generations. The same token, you look at MLS, we're now into 20th year, 20th seasons, 20 years since it got going. And there was certainly the hiccups with expansion that was too aggressive in the late 90s, early 2000s, and there was the retrenchment when they actually got rid of franchises, and then they've kind of set off again. But it's got deep roots as far as the fan base is concerned. It's not going to go any place. It's going to move forward in sort of continuing in baby steps rather than massive strides. I know Don Garber's been quoted as being one of the world's top leagues in 2022. No doubt when we get through to 2022, if Don Garber is still around, he will announce they were successful. The problem is you've got to define what one of the top leagues are. And it's been run in a kind of commercially sensible way, a financially sensible way. Ultimately, the challenge for MLS, I think, is to in some ways not necessarily improve at the top end, but to improve at the bottom end. The poorer players have to become better. If you look at the Premier League, and if you did a sort of score of players, 1 being a poor player and 10 being a world-class, excellent, one of the best players in the world kind of assessment, you would find that basically the players range between an 8 and a 10. At MLS, you have a range between probably 9 and 2. And it's the poorer players that kind of drag the league down. So they've got to look at improving that sort of bottom half. It's the top half that get attention, but it's the bottom half that actually tell you how the overall standard of the league's going. So that's one area where it has to improve, in my opinion.
What do you feel? I mean, again, in my opinion, I just think there's this American exceptionalism about MLS. Like, we're already here. Like, okay, like they're comparing themselves to the NBA, the NFL. The spectacle is there, but the quality on the pitch is not there. And like I just looking at the tweets that were flying back and forth for the Copa America, everybody's like, oh yeah, the preseason's over, who cares?
Yeah.
To me, you're playing against the Mexican teams, which are better than you. This is a chance for you to really stake your claim to be one of the best leagues if you want to do that. If you want to do that, you need to really take this serious. And you need to, really compete. And it's like they take it like a preseason game. Every game should be important, especially against Mexican opposition, because the Mexican league is better than them. And to me, it's like, and I definitely am on the promotion relegation boat. Where do you stand on that?
Let me take first one first. The CONCACAF Champions League, I think it is. It's an important competition, and it's in a way that it's a kind of road and it's an avenue to international recognition. Like getting MLS team at the World, as much as we dismiss the Club World Cup, the reality is it does get attention. It still is a legitimate tournament, and let's face it, who doesn't want to be regarded as a world champion? So success in CONCACAF Champions League leads you there, so that helps the reality and the perception of the league and the marketability of the league. So that's one reason, one very strong reason to take the competition seriously. Having said that, there's also a very crowded calendar. The MLS teams haven't quite matched up this idea that the Scandinavian, particularly the Russian and some of the Eastern European teams, particularly in Ukraine, have been able to deal with a little bit better over the years, which is coming out of a closed season and immediately hitting the knockout rounds of a competition. You look at Europa League, you look at Champions League, Russian teams and Ukrainian teams have had that challenge for a number of years. Some other Nordic countries, but they don't appear quite so regularly. But you've got to be able to take that on if you're serious about the competition. So, yeah, I think that's a mark, an improvement, and winning and regularly going deeper and beating Mexican teams on a more regular basis is important. The technical piece, I'm not, there's a strong technical component and you want teams to be better. But also ultimately, if we all just sat back and said, well, we're only going to watch leagues that we believe are technically good or technically superior, then none of us would watch our grassroots teams. Like my grassroots team, grassroots isn't the proper word, but I was born and bred in Scotland. Dundee's my team. And I know watching Dundee produces crappy football. I realise that it's not the same as the Premier League. It's certainly nothing in common with the Champions League. But I love my team because that's what I was brought up with, and I can overlook all the warts. And I want Dundee to do well because I've wanted Dundee to do well for 55 years. So it's not a direct connection between technical standard and a love of a team or even a league. Certainly, the technical piece will help broaden the footprint and bring more people in to watch it, but it's not necessarily directly related. And I think what we've seen over the years in MLS has been the establishment of a fan culture, which has been very, very important. So what we've got there is we've got people who are absolutely committed to teams. And although technically, if they want to watch technically beautiful football, they'd watch Barcelona every week. But it goes a bit deeper than that. We watch teams and we follow teams and we support teams because we feel a connection with them, whether it be local, whether it be some players, whether it be, in some cases when you're a kid, the colour of their jerseys sometimes. So, that isn't a direct connection. So let me then go on to the MLS promotion and relegation. In the ideal world, we'd have promotion and relegation in the United States. But it's not going to happen. It will never happen unless somebody can tell me how they're going to find ways to reimburse owners who have put out multi-million dollars to buy clubs and buy a franchise, that suddenly they could be relegated and lose access to lots of money. Unless you can answer that question, it's really a moot point because turkeys do not vote for Christmas or Thanksgiving in North America. You're not going to be able to institute promotion and relegation until you find a way of being able to answer that financial question. The game evolved in Europe and the rest of the world in a certain way in a very earlier, much less sophisticated financial time. That's the reason we have promotion and relegation. The interesting thing, I think, would be is if you were establishing soccer in some place like England just now, that just let's imagine that there was no soccer in England, never had been any soccer in England, and you're going to establish a league. Do you really think you would start with promotion and relegation, or would you follow the United States franchise model? I think it's probably the latter. And I think it's far more likely in some ways with some of the talk of the European Super League, we're seeing more and more of that being sort of pushed towards this idea of guaranteed spots. So ideal world, yes, we'd have promotion and relegation, MLS and a number of other divisions, but I just don't think it's possible. I just don't see that hurdle ever being overcome.
Okay. Ellis?
Moving into the FIFA, the new FIFA president.
Yes.
He went on a platform of giving out more money to all FIFA nations.
Yes.
And he also mentioned that he wants to expand the World Cup to 42 nations, if I'm not mistaken.
40, I think.
40 nations.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea? And if so, from what confederation should these countries come? Bobby?
Well, with tongue in cheek, I'll say I think it's a brilliant idea if Scotland's one of them. But even when we expanded Euros to 24, we still managed to screw it up. So I think we'd have to go about 140 before Scotland would be guaranteed a spot. But in seriousness, it's all laid out. The Infantino in his manifesto actually laid out where the spots would come from. And if I'm not mistaken, I think CONCACAF was up for maybe 5. The one thing that 40 does, there's a kind of, and my personal opinion is I wouldn't like to see it, but if it's going to happen, there's actually some cases that are actually quite positive. If you go to 40, you can maintain this idea of the top 2 qualifying, so you don't mess around with best third place finishers. So that's possible to maintain that piece. The downside, and he's never come up with an explanation of how we deal with this. If you guys are probably too young, but the infamous case in 1982 when Germany and Austria kicked off in a late kickoff, and we knew that if Germany won 1-0, Austria and Germany would both go through. And I think it was Algeria who had beaten Germany in the first game of the tournament that were actually the country that finished up on the wrong end of this. And Germany took a 1-0 lead, and Austria and Germany from then on played out an absolute an abomination of a game where nobody tried because they knew 1-0 was good enough for them to both go through. That's why FIFA changed the rules to make sure that the final games of a FIFA tournament, a group-based tournament, always took place at the same time. So this idea of a convenient scoreline benefiting both teams. If you remember back to World Cup in Brazil, where we had Germany and the United States and Portugal and Ghana playing at the same time. We went into that with all 4 teams playing at the same time, and we're constantly not just watching one game, we were watching the other one because there was an interconnection there between who could go through. So we had that situation. So what Infantino has not been able to describe is how you'd overcome that, because with a 5-team group, you would actually go back to the situation where it was potentially a situation where 2 teams could play out 90 minutes and nothing draw or a predetermined result, and nothing, the other team could do nothing about it, which obviously not fair. So he's got to go through that. But as I say, I'm not particularly sold on the 32 teams, but if it's going to happen, I don't think it's a disaster that many people kind of lay it out to be. But I don't think it's ideal either. But he was elected on that platform, and in some ways it adds another 8 countries to the World Cup, expands the interest and expands the hype. The overall kind of marketability of the event helps as well. The $5 million, the money that he's promised to FIFA, I don't actually, strangely enough, you might find this odd, but I don't have a particular problem with that. I think the problem is to make sure that the money's spent wisely. I think under Blatter, there was this expansion of soccer development money, but there was no checks and balances on the process, so therefore you got the likes of Jack Warner rubbing his hands and pocketing all sorts of money because there wasn't the checks and balances. I don't think anybody's got a particular problem with money going to developing countries as long as it's being used to develop the game and it's going in to benefit the grassroots and it's not going into some despot's back pocket. Because FIFA, when you get down to it, it's really a cooperative. And Infantino, I think, in the speech that he made to the FIFA Congress, the extraordinary Congress that actually swayed the vote, or many people believe swayed the vote for him, was the comment about this is your money, and that's what FIFA is. FIFA are stewards of the game, or is stewards of the game. They are not all powerful. They're there as a way to stabilise and monitor the way the game is managed throughout the world. And as such, the money that they generate for the World Cup should be the federations and the confederations' money. So I don't have a particular problem with it as long as you can find ways to pay for it.
Cool. Bobby, you mentioned Scotland and Albania. Albania is first time my friend Ellis is from Albania. You're talking about excitement for the tournament.
Yeah.
We're going to the Euros because they made it this year, and it's nuts. It's crazy. You see what's going on. Comparing Albania and Scotland, what is a path for Scotland to go into the Euros and really, I guess, succeeding the way Albania has, which for many years it was nationalized players that would play in Switzerland, that would play in Germany, what other countries?
Italy.
Yeah, but now little by little the team is getting stronger. So what's the path for Scotland?
Well, it's strange you should mention Albania because my wife has a friend who teaches in an international school in Albania, and she was just home 2 weeks ago. And she's always followed North American sport, and she's now taken a rabid interest in soccer now because what she sees every week in Albania, walking down the street on a Saturday, all the bars are watching the games, and she says that the expectation around Albania, the Euros in 2016 is exceptional, and that's all people want to talk about. So back to this idea of going up to 24 teams in Euro. A lot of people were against it because, in their opinion, it would spoil the standard of the tournament. But what happened, if you look at the numbers, is with only 16 qualifiers for the Euros, what had begun to happen is about 13 of these spots were continually occupied by the same countries. So you weren't having this ability to spread the wealth, but spread the excitement and spread the involvement and giving smaller countries an opportunity to be there, which 24 does. Now, we've got the third place finishers, which I'm not too hot on, but I think that's a price to pay. You've got to be able to, if you want the game to grow and you want the game to further develop in all parts of the world, you've got to give these countries an opportunity. There's a reason that there's a rule in the Olympic rule book in terms of Olympic sports, in international track and field, that every country is allowed to nominate one athlete for a competition, because you've got to spark interest. Otherwise, your sport will die. So I think UEFA have been quite wise doing what they've done. In terms of Scotland making there, Scotland's paying the price of being arrogant and short-sightedness and absolute ineptitude at the top level in terms of the Scottish Football Association for many years. Scotland, you go back to the 60s and early parts of the 70s, produced very, very good players. At one point, the Scottish Football Association and the Scottish League were so arrogant that they actually believed they were able to compete in the same level as the Premier League. So they thought they could go out and spend money they didn't have while the Premier League were getting money. And they finished up going out there and hiring lots of foreign players, many of which weren't as good as the players that existed already. And the whole thing, there was a route or a pathway for young players that suddenly became shut off. And it's only perhaps in the last 3 or 4 years that Scotland's began to re-establish that pathway for young players. Unfortunately, I think along the way, they've lost a generation of players. The success of countries internationally is usually quite a simple one. It's about having a solid plan. It's about investing resources in the right places. You produce good players, and eventually good players will improve your standing at the international level. So there's a really the book that Graham Hunter did on the Spanish national team that he wrote just after they completed the 3 wins, the 1 World Cup and 2 European Championships, the one that they did in 2012 is a really great example of a country that, although a country with good soccer history and great resources, but realised that it wasn't really doing what it needed to do and how they went about instituting sort of reform from the grassroots up. And that's bought Hoggenstein's book on the re-emergence of Germany is the same way. It's about understanding what successful programs have, investing in it, monitoring it, measuring it, and good players come out the other end.
Definitely. Bobby, it's been a pleasure. I mean, it feels like a lesson. Seriously, I'm not even joking with you. Before we go, where can people follow you on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff? Give us all your information.
Twitter, it's at Bobby Soccer Rep. And as far as writing's concerned, it's Forbes.com under the Sports Money blog. And just stuck a post up there on the law changes that were approved on the weekend in video technology. So I'm expecting a fair bit of feedback on that, because the law changes that were put through on the weekend, I know everybody's talking about the video technology trials that are going to be instituted, but just as important are the law changes. There's some substantial changes to the laws of the game that are going to change the game that we watch, and I think probably for the better.
Thank you, Bobby. Again, anytime you want to come on, anytime Scotland's playing, we're going to be rooting for Scotland, the Scots. Let's go. Albania, same thing. Colombia, we're good. A little bit, sort of. Thank you so much, Bobby. And again, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All
and
right.
thank you for having me on.
Definitely, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.